Today's guest is a trauma recovery expert. She is a fascinating person. She is an Amazon best-selling author through a compilation book that she did a little while back. And she is now, I want to thank a friend of mine. And she's so amazing. And I absolutely love her. Her name is Karen Lynn Robinson. Welcome to the show, Karen.
I am so thrilled to be here with you.
It's been so fun getting to chat with you and hang out with you a little bit before I hit that record button. I just love you. I love everything about you. I just think you're such an amazing person. And I just wanted to, I'm going to gush. Sorry.
The feeling's very mutual. You're beautiful inside and out.
No. So Karen, where are you originally from? Where'd you grow up?
Well, that's an interesting conversation just right out of the gate because
Yeah.
one parent is American and one parent is Canadian. I was born in Maine, like a little town called Fort Fairfield, Maine. We're known for our potatoes and our potato festivals. And I lived half of my childhood in Maine, and then the other half was in New Brunswick, Canada, where my father's from. So
Oh,
that's
I
how I
would
started.
I would not have imagined any part of Maine being known for potatoes. When we think of potatoes, we think of Idaho.
A lot of people say that to me, but
Yeah.
when I grew up, we grew up picking potatoes, harvesting potatoes, the potato workhouse. I worked on the potato harvesters. I lived potatoes for many years.
Wow. Were they russets? Were they reds?
More russet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good baking potatoes.
Yeah.
They're also really good in borscht, which explains why they grow so well in Maine because the climate there is very close to the climate in Russia. Those root vegetables.
Yes. Yes.
So, Karen, what was just kind of briefly, what was the trauma that you had to overcome that put you on the trajectory towards where your path has led you now?
Right. I saw that question coming.
It's always the hard one, right?
Yeah, it gets easier every time you tell your story. It does get easier. The emotional intensity comes down. But what's hard about it is that my trauma history is complex, right? I have complex trauma. It just wasn't a one and done event. So I grew up in a dysfunctional home. My father had some learning disabilities. He is highly anxious. My mom was also a significant trauma survivor and had a lot of mental health and physical health issues. So I grew up, there was neglect, there was a physical violence, there was emotional abuse, there was a lot of sexually inappropriate behaviors going on. And so I just never felt wanted in my house. I didn't feel like I belonged. I also had a suicide attempt because of my father's abuse. I just didn't know how to escape otherwise. And I prayed right before I took the no name brand Tylenol, which is the joke. Like maybe it wasn't God that saved me. Maybe it was the no name brand just sucked. Who knows? But I'm sure it was God. When I took the pills, I told him, I said, God, I don't know what else to do. I just can't do this. And I was a little bit pissed off. Am I allowed to say pissed off on your podcast?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes, you
Okay,
can.
good. So I woke up kind of pissed off. Like, why didn't he take me and save me from this situation?
Mm.
And so I was only 12. And so I somehow just understood that suicide was not my path and that there was maybe something better for me. So I did okay for a year or so. And then my mom left my dad, and it was like the best time. I finally got to do school activities. There was peace in the home. There was fun. When she made the decision to return, and she's a domestic violence, so well, she's passed away now, but during the time she was a domestic violence survivor. And so I don't know why I trusted that she wouldn't go back that time. I think it's because it was the first time we physically did not live with him. But when she made the decision to go back, I ran away at that point. And then my life turned around for the better. At first, I was supposed to live in a foster home, and that fell through. I was supposed to live with the nuns in my town, and I don't remember what happened with that. But at the end of the day, my aunt and uncle stepped up and said, they lived in Maine. We're gonna take you. So I was in a different country, a different state, a different school, and I thrived after that. I did really well in high school. I got a full scholarship. And during all that time, when I first ran away, I worked with this really, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, a terrible social worker who accused me of being a real big problem for my parents. He accused me of being promiscuous. He accused me of doing drugs. Neither of those things were true. However, if they were true, it still would not have excused his behavior. And I remember thinking, when I grow up, I'm going to help people and I'm not going to treat them this way. You know, this was like one of the hardest times of my life. And for it to be treated this way, I was like, no, I will never do this to people. And so between that and solving conflicts on the childhood playground, I just knew that God wanted me to be in that helping professional.
I'm
So that's the
so
story.
I think it's amazing that he was able to give you your path at such an early age. Right?
Mm, yeah,
Most kids, when they're going through these layers of trauma, they there's no way they can figure out what their path in life is supposed to be. They're still just trying to get from one day to the next. Now, even kids that
absolutely.
aren't going through that stuff are just trying to get from one day to the next. It's tough being a kid.
Hmm.
I
For
love
sure.
that you knew where you were going. Oh, and I can absolutely understand where you've been. I had a therapist that my parents took me to when I was 15. They had gotten hold of her first, so she already had preconceived ideas on me, and I had the same accusations made. I was the problem. Yeah. Yeah. And that's not a fun place to be for anybody. And we do have to take responsibility for the things that are actually in our control that we've done. I was absolutely a rotten child when I wanted to be, and I can own
Hmm.
that. But I was not on drugs and I was not promiscuous. It just wasn't a part of who I was. Never has been. Yeah.
Yeah. I work with a lot of teens over the year. I have a huge heart for teens,
Yeah.
and just letting them know that adolescence is a really brief time and that there is hope. Like when they're an adult, they can create the life that they want to live, just to hang on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you notice that you had some adaptive or changed behaviors that you could attribute to what it was that you had to survive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The biggest one, and I'm still struggling with to this day, is the emotional eating component. I would feel empty, or, I mean, whatever I felt, which is, complex and mixed emotions, I treated with food. My drug of choice has always been ice cream.
Me too.
So now I just simply can't have ice cream in my home. It's like the whole moderation thing doesn't work for me, or just have a little tiny bowl. None of that works for me. And I just had to accept it. And now there's no ice cream in my home. That's just the way it is. I've had other maladaptive issues. I was really unlucky in love, I would say, for many years. I had two failed marriages. I do think it's part of the trauma. One of those partners, well, they both had issues. The relationship had issues. Um, One of them was more emotionally abusive than other. So, and it's like, how can I be a therapist and in this situation? But one of the things I've learned during my healing path, personally and professionally, it doesn't matter how smart you are. Once you have that pattern in your brain, it takes a lot of work to break it, but it is possible to break. So now I'm in a healthier marriage with a healthier partner. And so there's a lot of hope again, um, that how I frame it to most people is I had to kiss a lot of frogs, but now I have a good guy. I don't know if I call him a prince, but he's a good guy.
Mine has a little bit of white knight syndrome, so it works out well for us, but same. Yeah. Yeah. There's always that failed relationship somewhere in there. Even if it's the relationship that you stick with, at one point it has failed in some way. Always.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So, what helped you to be able to heal from your trauma? Were there services or resources or people that you were able to lean on?
All that. Yeah, of course. They, you know, that saying that it takes one adult to, save a child, like one role model or one healthy adult. And so for me, that person was my aunt. She was always such a great role model in terms of she worked hard. She wasn't, she had her own struggles, but she wasn't a whiner and complainer. So it helped me kind of, my MO is to kind of whine and complain, but I learned like that doesn't really get you very far. So I modeled after her in terms of working hard and getting through school. So that was part of it. I think my faith has been a huge part. I have always had a special relationship with God, even if I was active in my church or not. Um, I think sometimes we think God is not there when we're not actively involved. I have never experienced that. I know I'm the problem when there is a problem. It's never God. I'm the one that will sometimes step away. I'll let other things in life get in the way. But I always go back because I know that's where I get fed and nurtured. Other things, I've been in and out of therapy over the years, but I've always been like a self-help junkie. Like I research like, okay, what are the most effective self-development books? I don't read the crap out there. And so I've read them all or nearly all. Like I read 3 books a week. They're not all self-help, of course. I just love reading. I love learning. I love trying new things. So all of that has been part of my healing journey.
It's fantastic. Have you always been a believer?
I don't remember ever not being one, so I think that's a yes.
Nice. What kind of books do you typically read when you're not reading the self help stuff and exploring your own brain?
Okay. I absolutely love historical fiction. I think it's like a win-win when you're learning about history, especially like geography involved as well. Like you're learning about historical places and what happened during that time period. I love fiction in general. I love biographies and autobiographies. I read a lot of different things. I also read a lot about productivity because I'm always trying to be more efficient in what I do. And I read productivity too to help my survivors that I work with. Like I have a virtual membership. So I try to read things that will help them too. Because a lot of survivors, we struggle with consistency. We are often very bright, but don't tend to be consistent. We tend to self-sabotage a lot. We tend to think we don't deserve better lives, at a subconscious level. Like our brain might say, of course I deserve this, but subconsciously we get in our own way. So I like to read things that I can bring to my membership to help them out as well.
Very cool. And when you are mentoring people in your membership, do you find yourself emulating the actions and the words of the people that have mentored you and helped you to get through this, like your aunt?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. What's your favorite piece of advice to give somebody who's trying to get over or through the trauma that they've experienced?
Ooh, this is a tricky, tricky one for me. I think my favorite approach to this is just trying to instill those little seeds of hope, you know? It's like, well, okay, so it's like if you're really upset with yourself right now, like maybe you made a big mistake at work. It's like, okay, think back to when you really had something right. What is that talent? What is that strength within you? And how can we emulate that? So I like just, it doesn't have to be about work. It can be about anything. Like, okay, and the other piece is not like what you did right, but looking at what you did that was incorrect. Like, what is the valuable learning lesson out of that? Because really, a lot of times our mistakes are our biggest learning opportunities. And so just taking those moments and like, okay, how can we reframe this? Like, what is it that I really got out of that? What's the message? And sometimes you have to dig a little bit to find it.
It's beautiful.
I
And
also
there's
have something. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
My aunt has this saying, because she was my role model for so long. I accepted it for a while, but now I have bucked it. Bucked it? I don't know if that's the right phrase. Bucked at it. She would say sometimes when something would go wrong, she goes, you and me. She's like, if it wasn't for bad luck, we'd have no luck at all. And so one day I said to her, I refuse to own that. I am not gonna let that be my destiny or my fate or my mantra. I said, I am blessed and things go my way. And she's like, oh, and it's true. Like we all have little obstacles or big obstacles. That's actually called life, you know, we're supposed to. But looking at the blessings, when we really look for them and search for them and seek them out, we're going to find even more of. So that's what I'm sticking with.
Ugh, I love that. Yeah, it's we cannot win everything. We cannot be the best at everything. And we are going to fail at things every once in a while, but it's through the failures that we learn. Because if
That's
we
right.
did everything perfectly the first time around, we'd never learn anything at all.
Right. And we'd be so boring.
Oh my gosh, yes. Uh, no challenges in life. What are you talking about? So I know you're currently working on a book. I don't know if it'll be out yet by the time that this podcast airs, but if it is, what's the title? Do you have a title for it yet?
I do. It's called Therapist on Fire, Brimstone and Holy Water.
Ooh, tell me about it. What's it all about?
Well, it's a bit of the story of my life, and it also has discussion stories about my two grandmothers. Both grandmothers were believers. One was Roman Catholic and French Canadian. The other was American and Pentecostal, like the holy roller. You must wear dresses. You don't cut your hair. You don't wear earrings. Holy roller.
Wow. Yeah.
And those two women who were amazing, their influence on me is a big part of my story, right? I'm going to tell about my childhood and my journey as a therapist. So I have bits and pieces right now, and so by the time this airs, I really believe it will be out. I have a plan for it to be out. So
That's exciting. Let me know when it does, guys. I want to be one of the first people to buy it. That, and I want to make sure that I have a link to be able to purchase the book through the podcast if people are looking to grab your book.
thank
So
you.
it's getting to that point in the interview where I have to ask my last few questions, and they're always my favorites. And the first one is, were you always an introvert or an extrovert? How did you grow up, and what are you now?
Okay, well, I actually took a test on this, and I can't remember if it was Myers or one of the others, but I am 50-50.
You're a
Isn't
true
that cool?
ambivert.
That's right. Yes,
Wow.
yes. And I can't remember if it was 50-50 or 51-49, but it was like nearly like 50-50.
Wow.
Yeah, is what I remember about it. And I can so see it myself. And I also contributed to my, being a Gemini too. Like I am this little devil or I am extremely angelic, like I love taking people by surprise, like that shock value. And I love my alone time with tea and reading my book, but I also love getting to know people and learning about people, different cultures, different situations. So yeah, I think I represent the best of both worlds with that question.
I love that. And how do you celebrate your wins in life when something's going really well?
You knew that was going to be tough.
Yeah. My last one is always the hardest one, though.
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that with a couple of things. I truly believe our brains are brats and we need to reward the brain when we do something well because it will want to do more of it. Okay. So I like my favorite treat when I am successful at something is a massage. I love getting all the tension out of my body. But I also learned that to celebrate ourselves doesn't have to be not that a massage is extravagant, but it's pricey, right? I think hugging ourselves, um, tapping, just giving ourselves a tap on the back or just, you know, tapping like good job, like doing something with our bodies helps our body remember, clap for yourself, whatever, rub your arms, rub your legs, stomp your feet, like, yes, do the celebration thing. Yeah.
That's so
Okay. I
cute.
survived that question.
Now, if you need a moment to pause to think about this one, I'm okay with that. Most people do. What is one thing you love about yourself that's not related to your physical appearance?
I actually don't have a hard time with this one. I just pause for effect.
I love you. I'm telling you.
I think the character trait I have that I love the most is that I really strive to be as genuine and authentic with people as possible. Nobody likes fakeness. And if they do, they're not my person to hang with. You know, I I just think being authentic, being your true self is how God wants us to be. So, and I think that's something I excel in.